Hello and good evening, everybody. And on tonight's episode of Album Rant, I would once again like to talk about American hard rock, boogie rock, blues rock, psychedelic rock, and sadly, in their latter years, pop rock artist R.E.O. Speedwagon. And I have decided to focus my efforts tonight on their second studio release, released in 1972, entitled R.E.O/T.W.O. Yes, that really is the name of the album, and if you know the first thing about these guys, you probably are well familiar with the fact that they have some rather interesting album titles, to put it delicately. But I usually do this, and if you are a subscriber to this channel, you probably have already heard this story before. And if you haven't heard it, well, good news, I'm going to retell it anyways. But REO Speedwagon actually goes back a lot later than a lot of people may think. They actually go back to the late 60s, and they actually formed in the year 1967 in the state of Illinois. Well, in 1966, there was a college student, a college junior by the name of Neal Doughty, and he was very proficient on the piano. And one night after the first night of class, he came across another musician by the name of Gratzer, who was also very proficient, but this time on the drums. And well, they got together, they started jamming a little bit, and they played a lot of Beatles covers, but regardless, they really hit it off. And they joined forces with some other artists, and their guitarist at the time, by the name of Joe Matt, I believe that's who it was, he decided he wanted to start a new band where everyone would take turns singing except for Doughty. Interesting. Maybe he wasn't that good of a singer. I don't know. I've never heard him sing, so I guess we'll never know. But yes, anyways, the following year, everyone returned and they decided to name the band REO Speedwagon. And it's named after a truck that was created or was produced, I guess, in the year 1915. And Doughty actually came up with the idea, but something very interesting. He decided to pronounce the name REO instead of REO, which is how the truck is pronounced, apparently. I don't know, I'm not any kind of automotive expert or anything, so again, anyone out there know better than I do, go ahead and correct me, I know you want to. But yeah, the early days of this band, they went through a ton of lineup changes. But in 1968, they came across two more members, Terry Luttrell. I think it's Luttrell. I used to think it was Luttrell. I think it's Luttrell, actually. Again, don't crucify me too badly if I'm wrong. And they found a guitarist by the name of Bob Crownover, who replaced Matt as the lead guitarist. And through then, a lot of other members started trickling in and started, inserting themselves into the band, such as a bassist by the name of Gregg Philbin. And believe it or not, back then, at this point in the band's history, they actually had a saxophonist. Very interesting. They have never had a full-time saxophonist since the release of their first album, but they have incorporated the saxophone into some of their compositions, so that's very interesting. But the saxophonist was by the name of Joe McCabe, but later he moved on, and they even had a trumpeter, which is actually kind of hilarious. But yes, they kept swapping in and swapping out members, and it was a process, I'll say that. But in 1970, they came across a guitarist by the name of Gary Richrath. And for the longest time, I thought his name was Richrath. And I don't know why I thought that. I think, actually what happened was I was at a party one time and, things were happening. I wasn't thinking too clearly. But me and someone else were actually talking about REO Speedwagon, and I swear, this guy kept pronouncing it Richrath. And for the longest time, I thought it was Richrath, but now I realize it's Richrath, but whatever. But yeah, that was his name. But apparently the story goes like this. He really wanted to be in the band. The band was becoming very popular around this time. and he actually drove 100 miles to see the band perform, and he desperately wanted to be a part of it. And he was basically like, one way or another, I am going to be in this band. And I think that was really awesome. So essentially by this point, their initial lineup has formed. It is Terry Luttrell on lead vocals, Gary Richrath on lead guitar, Gregg Philbin on bass guitar, Alan Gratzer on the drums, and then Neal Doughty on the keyboard / piano / organ. And in 1971, they released their very first album entitled REO Speedwagon. Yeah. Guess they couldn't really come up with a proper title, so they just named the album after the band. That's all I can really think of. I'm not totally sure, but in their defense, like most of the artists in existence have done that, so I guess I can let that slide. But the first album, it was awesome, okay? It blended a whole bunch of different genres. We had hard rock, we had blues rock, we had some boogie in there, we had some psychedelic stuff in there. It was awesome because we had Gypsy Woman Passion, 157 Riverside Avenue, which is actually led by Neal Doughty's piano. And it's a nice swinging beat, sounds kind of like a 1950s rock and roll song. But of course, the guitar on that song was a lot more electric and a lot more heavy than what the 1950s were accustomed to, and it really did kind of work. And 157 Riverside Avenue was played in concert pretty much throughout the entire band's existence. Oftentimes, it's the last song they play in concert after riding the storm out, and I think that's really awesome. We also said Anti-Establishment Man, kind of a political song, and that theme is going to come up later. And Anti-Establishment Man was awesome. Very slow, but very grooving and very groovy. And of course, it's hyper-political, which, you know, they're just fresh out of college, so that kind of makes sense. A lot of college kids are hyper-political. But anyways, it was a great song, very heavy and just awesome. We had Lay Me Down, which kind of incorporated the blues into it. We had Sophisticated Lady, very fast, great organ in the background, loved it. We had 5 Men Were Killed Today, which back then was the closest this band could ever get to being a ballad. And yeah, they would overexploit that genre to the 10th degree in the 80s, and for better or worse, it is something that happened. We had Prison Woman, nice 2-minute rocker, but man, the album closer, Dead at Last, is 10 plus minutes. It is psychedelic. It is multi-part. It is proggy. And the organ, man, Neal Doughty's organ just really set the mood and made it such a beast of a song. Hugely underrated REO Speedwagon track. Like, no one ever talks about it, but guys, I swear, you need to check out Dead at Last. It is a great song. So naturally, in the year 1972, which was the following year, they, of course, wanted to release another album, and that's where I am right here. And that brings me to what I'm going to talk about tonight, which is REO / T.W.O. And this is the album cover. And guys, I am not really feeling this album cover. I mean, we have the band's logo, which makes up the vast majority of the album cover. And we have a picture of the band, which is next to impossible to really tell who is who aside from their instruments. So, yeah, that photo is leaving a lot to be desired. Did they give me anything on the inside? No, they didn't. They gave me a record, but no artwork, so we're going to have to kind of accept the fact that there's nothing on the inside, because there isn't. And then going over to the back, we have some credits up here. We got that right there. We got the band right here, and I think I pinpoint down who everyone is. That's definitely Alan. That right there is Gregg. That right there is Neal. I'm guessing we have Gary over here on the side. But most importantly, let's go up here to the track list. And it all starts off with Let Me Ride. And it's got a great intro. It's a very heavy intro. But after that, you're probably going to notice that something doesn't quite feel right. What is wrong here? Like, what's the issue here? That's right. Terry Luttrell is actually not on this album. In fact, he left the band after that first album and he was never seen or heard from ever again. At least in terms of REO Speedwagon, I'm sure that people actually did see him and hear about him around, but he was never in the band once again after that. No. The lead singer this time around is someone by the name of Kevin Cronin. Yes, that Kevin Cronin who really unofficially took over the band in the mid-'80s and then officially took over the band just recently by retitling it the Kevin Cronin Solo Band. Well, guys, this was actually Kevin Cronin's very first appearance, all the way back in 1972. And believe it or not, like a lot of people may not think this, but he goes much further back with this band than you might think. But putting all that aside, he was the songwriter for the opening song, Let Me Ride. And I'm going to tell you right now, I love Let Me Ride. I kind of hummed together the opening little beat and whatever, but it really sounds heavy. It really sounds hard-rocking. And man, the rhythm of this song is incredible. It's a very underrated REO Speedwagon track. I have never heard of it being performed live. I'm sure it has at some point, maybe in the mid to early 70s, from some concert I've never seen or whatever, but it is a great song. It has that intro and then it has a very, very fast beat. And I've been on the road now for a day and a night, been lonesome and hungry for miles. I've seen how you people been looking your lives. I'm gonna kill you all with your own smile. And I just love that intro. Kevin is such a talented vocalist. And he just keeps going on that same beat over and over again for the first couple of minutes, and it just keeps going from verse to verse to verse, and for a while it just doesn't let up. And in between every verse, Gary has some incredible guitar solos. The band was a lot heavier back then. I mean, I know today a lot of people really just associate REO Speedwagon with songs like Take It on the Run, or Keep on Loving You, or Can't Fight This Feeling. They were a very different band back then, and I really kind of prefer this style as opposed to their more commercial pop rock that they produced in the mid to late 80s. But yes, it does go through those first couple of segments over and over, but surprisingly, this song is a lot more proggy than you might give it credit for. Because after the first couple of choruses, it kind of deviates and goes off on its own little path. It gets a little bit softer, but Kevin and whoever is singing in the background, I don't know who it is, it might be Gary. I know Gary has sang lead vocals a couple times with REO Speedwagon, and I know he's done background vocals quite a bit. But we have Let Me Ride, 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 Let to Feel Free Inside, Let Me Ride, Ride, Ride. I think I did that the best I could. I know that was probably terrible when I tried my best. But it keeps meandering between that and some rather heavy segments. But regardless, Let Me Ride is a great opener to this album. And honestly, guys, Let Me Ride does kind of serve a place, kind of a time marker in my life, because in 2009, I had just gotten into REO Speedwagon. I had picked up this album, and I was desperately trying to find a job. And if you know anything about the year 2009, you would know there were no jobs available. And I was so afraid I was going to have to move back in with my parents, which to me would be the ultimate humiliation. But anyways, I was waiting one night. I was expecting a call about a job interview I had gone to, and it came in at like 6 o'clock at night or so. I was actually watching Home Alone 2 when it happened, and I was so excited. I was so happy. I then got in the car and just went out to get dinner to go celebrate, and Let Me Ride was in the CD deck, and I just jammed out to that all the way, and it just really reminds me of that event, just really makes me happy. So that was Let Me Ride, guys, and it's over 6 minutes. It's a pretty long song by REO Speedwagon standards, but it's great all the ways, and it's a huge shame that it's fallen through the cracks. So now we come to the second track, which is How the Story Goes, and this one was written by Richrath, and it's a good song. It's a little bit slower. It's like da-na-na-na-na, 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 and I think it is good for what it is. Now, if we were to compare this song to an album such as, I don't know, Building the Bridge, How the Story Goes would easily be the best song on that album. But on this album, I think it is probably, or at least to me at least, it is a lesser composition on this album in relationship to everything else that is on here. So I think it's a great song, but it's not quite getting my blood pumping the way some of the other ones are. But I mean, like I said, I kind of hummed the beat a little while ago, and he does kind of go through the standard verse-chorus arrangement, and towards the end of every chorus, it seems like he's building and building and building to something, which I like, but we don't quite get the emotional payoff that I think we were entitled to, if that makes any sense. But yes, pretty good hard rocker, standard, hard rock and roll song. Really like it. Now, track 3 may be the most controversial subject on this album. We have a cover of Chuck Berry's Little Queenie. I have never actually heard the Chuck Berry version because I'm not really a big Chuck Berry fan. I know, you would have thought, huh? But yeah, I realize that Chuck Berry probably was very influential to these guys, and I totally understand that. Not quite my style of music, but I have heard the Rolling Stones version. Pretty good. I have heard Queen incorporate kind of a little segment of Little Queenie into the last part of Now I'm Here off their Sheer Heart Attack album. Decent. But this actually is not really that bad of a cover. I mean, I've heard a lot of people trash this cover of Little Queenie. I actually do kind of like it. It's like dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. And it builds up a little bit, and we actually have a saxophone. I do not know who is playing the saxophone. I don't know if it's a member of the band. Actually, wait, we actually have it right here. I feel kind of silly. Saxophone on Little Queenie. Special thanks to Boots Randolph. Okay, I have no idea who that is, but there you go. Just answer my own question. But anyways, we do have a saxophone. It kind of gives the song kind of a boogie feel to it, which I do really kind of like, actually. It's creative. I like that. And I think it's a good cover, okay? I know a lot of people trash it. I do actually kind of like this cover, but I got lumps in my throat when I saw her coming down the aisle. I got wiggles in my knees when she looked at me and sweetly smiled. Well, there she is again, standing over by the record machine. Well, she looks like the model on the cover of a magazine, but she's too cute to be a minute over 17. Okay. Different time, guys, okay? But I'm not quite sure what he was getting at there, but, just this song was very influential to a lot of artists, so we'll just leave it at that. But yes, as the song starts building and building and building, it just goes, go, 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 Little Queenie. I said, go, 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 Little Queenie. I like it. I really do. I actually do like it. May not be the kind of song you might think that I'd be into, but I actually kind of am. Not that I'm really that big of a fanatic about boogie rock, but it's just so incredibly catchy. So yeah, I do kind of like Little Queenie. But the side closer is called Being Kind Can Hurt Someone Sometimes. And this was written by Kevin Cronin, which may come as a shock to some people. Because again, like I said, a lot of people associate Kevin Cronin with the more melodic, more love ballady type numbers, but this one is dark. It is murky. It just starts off and it's really, really slow and kind of spooky-like. and it's just setting a really dark and mystical atmosphere, which is not something you would come to associate with REO Speedwagon, but guys, I'm telling you, it does exist. And we got Please Don't Worry Now About the Morning. When it's time, we'll slip our wine and sleep. Whoa, but I've been known to love more than one person. Guys suck. But yes, it kind of goes through that kind of rhythm every now and then, and the band really picks up towards the end of those little segments, but it keeps slowing down and slowing down after that. Then it resumes the dark, murky segments and then starts picking up before slowing down once again. And you just really get the feeling that this whole thing is building to a very huge, explosive payoff. And boy, does it deliver. Because after about 4.5 minutes or so, we still, it's been rather tame, but then it just picks up and it just starts exploding. It's going dun 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 dun, and it just finishes in a big, fast, explosive, and heavy crescendo, and it ends in style. This song, I am telling you, it is bordering on heavy metal. I would not fully call this heavy metal, but it's definitely towing the line. And it's definitely right up there with the likes of not Black Sabbath, but Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple, who are also very, very popular around this time. So side one, as you probably guessed, has started things off incredibly strong. And I think pretty much every song on side one is awesome, but I think Being Kind Can Hurt Someone Sometimes is my favorite song from side number one. Let Me Ride is a definite runner-up, so we have that. But side two is over here, and we're going to see if this fares better. And I'm kind of getting out of range here. Yeah, there we go. Okay? Yeah. It starts off with Music Man, which was also written by Kevin Cronin. And this is a pretty fast, pretty by-the-numbers, straightforward hard rocker. And I really like it. It's like and of course, recently I've been thinking about what I am and where my priorities lie. Getting it together on some future plan, deciding what I need to get by. I tried working and schooling, but that's just not my plan, oh no. Can't you see I'll always be a music man? And it kind of it kind of goes from verse to chorus, from verse to chorus, and like I said, it's a pretty standard hard rock song, but it's really good actually, and it's very fast, pretty heavy, got a definite rock and roll feel behind it. I really do like Music Man, and they still do play this one in concert, which I think is amazing. It was the year 2024. That was the last time I actually saw the band under the name REO Speedwagon, because now they've just decided to be honest with themselves and call it what it really is, which is the Kevin Cronin solo band. But the last time they were actually touring under the name REO Speedwagon, they did play Music Man, and I really enjoyed it. I had been waiting for that for a very long time, and I had a great time. Next comes Like You Do, which was written by Gary Richrath, and this song is incredible. Okay, starts off very fast. Dun 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 dun, and it's got such an incredibly unique rhythm to it. I love it. Well, I see women who cross their legs before they sit down to the table, and I see women who look to the sky screaming, "Lord, I believe in the Bible." Try my best there. And of course, I've seen hookers dancing through Times Square with their heads held up so high, but I've never seen a woman who makes me feel, whoa, like you do. And the entire rhythm is just awesome. I love it. Very fast, very heavy, especially by REO Speedwagon standards. And like I said, it doesn't conform to the standard arrangement. It deviates through all these different segments, and the rhythm, I just cannot get enough of it. It's like nothing we've really heard before, and it's a very great REO Speedwagon song. And they also still do play this one, When I saw them in 2022, I believe, they did play it, and I was the only person in my area who even knew the song. For everyone else, this is a time to sit down and kind of, chill a bit, have a beer or whatever. No. I was up there singing, pounding my fists, banging my head. It was absolutely incredible, and I'm so glad I got to hear them play Like You Do in concert, because it was a very, very thrilling experience. So yeah, Like You Do, great song, okay? The only real complaint about it is the last 2 minutes or so, it gets a little bit soft, and it kind of gets a little bit bluesy, or a little bit too bluesy for my taste. I think if they just went off and did something that was different but still very heavy, I think that would have worked a whole lot better. But regardless, great song, very few complaints about it. In fact, just minor nitpicks, love it. Then we come to Flash Tan Queen, which was also written by Gary. And it's okay. It's a little bit slower, and it's kind of a crunching, kind of brooding. Not quite my favorite. Now again, if this song were on Building the Bridge, it would be easily the best song on the album. But for R.E.O. T.W.O, I think it is one of the weaker ones. There's some great organs on there. Neal Doughty is on point there. Like, his keyboards or organs, whatever he's playing, sounds very reminiscent of Deep Purple, actually, which I think is really incredible. Deep Purple was also very popular back then. Them and Uriah Heep really reminds me of them. Now, unfortunately, REO Speedwagon would not continue down this path, but they did sound like that at this point. However, the album Closer is written by Gary Richrath. It is called Golden Country. And I'm not sure if you saw my REO Speedwagon song tournament. By that game, through the tournament, Golden Country was the winner. Through that game, Golden Country was my favorite REO Speedwagon song. It is heavy, it is dark, and it goes from slow segments to fast segments. It's like, dum dum dum, dum dum dum, dum dum dum. And as I said, I'm definitely getting some Deep Purple vibes here, and it would have been really, really awesome if they just stuck with this style of music, but they didn't. The lyrics are also hyper-political. Golden Country, your face is so red. With all of your money, your poor can be fed. You strut around, you flirt with disaster, never really caring just what comes after. Well, your blacks are dying, but your back is still turned. Your freaks are crying, your back is still turned. You better stop your hiding or your country will burn. Yep. I believe the song was about the Vietnam War and how the government was pouring all of its resources in the Vietnam War and just ignoring the social unrest that was occurring in their own country. And while they were so concerned about what was happening overseas, they were ignoring the fact that the United States was not doing so well. And this was also around the time of the Civil Rights Movement. So that was another thing that may not have made the country look so good, but regardless, Golden Country is awesome. It is heavy. It is dark. It has some really electric guitar solos in it. And at the same time, it's such a powerful song. The lyrics are great. The rhythm is great. And man, in the middle, Gary has an incredible guitar solo. Again, it is borderline heavy metal in my opinion. Don't think we fully went all the way there, but it's definitely teetering on the brink. And the live version, off the Live You Get What You Play For album, is even better. Heavier, and that guitar solo is greatly expanded. In comparison to the live version, I think the studio version is a little bit flatter, but it's still awesome all regardless. And I'm telling you, I heard them play this many times in concert, right around 2009, 2010, 2011 or so. And right before it started, the organ was going on. I'm not sure if Neal was actually playing it or if it was on a loudspeaker. I have no idea. But it was really setting the mood, and you just knew you were going back to the early 70s. And the whole thing just kept building and building and building. And Kevin is telling the story of the song and how at the time it was all about how the Vietnam War was hurting the country. But then he said that in latter years he sees a new meaning to Golden Country, and it's all about supporting the troops and everything they're doing for us. Okay, I don't think that was Gary's initial intention when he wrote this, but Kevin, if you see it that way, I don't care. Just play the song, and man, he did. And after that intro, it just starts exploding. It was heavy, and I loved every second of it. And of course, this was a song that pretty much I was the only one in the audience who knew what it was. I don't care. It was great. The whole song is great. This whole album is great. And I think Golden Country is my favorite from side number 2. And so that is going to conclude my review of REO T.W.O. I want to thank you all very much for joining me. I had a great time talking about this album. Do I recommend this album? Absolutely, I do. This is one of REO Speedwagon's absolute best, and if you're a fan of this artist or hard rock in general, you really need to hear it. It's heavy, it's well written, it's got great rhythms and great segments in it. Definitely check it out. Anyways, next time, I want to talk about an album that's going to make me feel pretty. But until then, have a very pleasant evening.